Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with Jimmy Song to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. Jimmy, if you could do me a favor, I know you don't need to introduce yourself, but just in case every day we're getting new and new people, could you introduce yourself to the audience, let them know who you are, maybe your origin story of how you got into Bitcoin and how that led you to do what you do in the industry today?
Yeah, I got into Bitcoin in 2011. I started following it, I think, when I saw a story on Slashdot. 2013 is when I started developing in it because Bitcoin was getting very valuable, and I realized, like, okay, I need to get in on this at a professional level. I've been a software developer for like 20 years, so it was a natural fit. And I started developing. I started with a project called Color Coins in 2013, which is sort of like a proto ICO, um, but on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's too bad that that never took off. And there was this kid that was writing our white paper, and he was like, he wrote it and it was like completely not what we wanted. And we were like, hey, what's up with this? Shouldn't you have written it a little differently? And he's like, well, no, this is what I think it should be. And we argued back and forth. And eventually he said, screw you guys, I'm going to go make my own coin. His name was Vitalik Buterin. So yeah, he ended up creating Ethereum. so that was in 2013. I did a bunch of other stuff. I worked for Monetas, Armory, and now Paxos. So I've been a Bitcoin developer for like the last almost 5 years now. It's 4 years. Yeah, a little over 4 years. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey. I got into blogging and doing videos and stuff earlier this year. It's kind of funny because I wrote articles like 3 years ago. Nobody read them. Now I write them, and like lots of people read them. It's been a crazy ride. I've told people this before, but I had less than 300 followers in January, and it's my follower count has gone up even faster than the Bitcoin price. So I feel very blessed, and and a shout out to everybody that's obviously watching and things like that.
That's a true reflection, though, of the quality of your content and your soapbox and the way that you use it. You know, a lot of people could take advantage of people, and you just purely give out free education on a daily basis. I wanted to ask you about the fact that, I was at the Texas Bitcoin Conference in your hometown, man, and you were not there. So why were you not at the Texas Bitcoin Conference 3? And why'd you break my heart?
Well, sorry, I didn't know you were gonna be there. Obviously, there were other people that were there at the same time, and they asked the same question. Hey, are you gonna be at the conference? Well, several reasons. First of all, I would have had to pay, and it would have been it was more or less, I think, an ICO fest. And
Yeah.
I, like when you watch like a pitch for an ICO, I liken it to like watching a presentation for like timeshare presentation or something like that. I just don't want to be there. I'm not interested. And it's thinking always about like, how do I get out of this right now? Like, it's boring. I don't want to know about your ICO. I don't really care. So it wouldn't have been very interesting. So and I didn't want to pay to do that. And second, like sometimes I'll tolerate that if I can like get a speaking slot or something like that. And these guys didn't invite me, so that was another major consideration. But third, the reason they didn't invite me probably was because I've been very critical of the people that put it on. Texas Bitcoin Conference was more or less founded by David Johnston and Paul Snow
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of that crew. And 3 years ago, when I was writing those articles that no one was reading, one of them was about how I thought Factum. I didn't see the value in Factum. I since learned not to just to keep my mouth shut on a lot of this stuff and just sort of speak more generally. But back then, that was kind of a major thing, and I don't know. I haven't really associated with those people since. So yeah, that's why I didn't do that particular conference.
Now, so much respect for that too, because the fact that they were going to charge you to attend that event is just And I was there. I did attend, and as soon as the conference was over, I came home and I made a video. It's titled like "What the fuck Texas Bitcoin Conference." I wanted to buy a T-shirt from the venue, and they did not accept Bitcoin. They only accepted cash for the merchandise. So I was immediately disgusted, and I do agree it was like an ICO fest, if anything. Um, but to
Yeah.
change topic a little bit here, do you think on the cynical side here that Coinbase bought up Bitcoin Cash before listing it, and that's why it pumped?
Well, I don't know if Coinbase, the company, did it. I mean, they would get in all sorts of trouble if they did that as a company. But certainly, the news seems to have leaked by, to either the employees or the employees' friends and family or whoever. And there was a pump going on way before they announced it earlier that day, or earlier yesterday. So, I mean, my suspicion is that people knew something was happening, and obviously, Coinbase has a lot of new users and they're going to see a new coin. I mean, we've watched like Litecoin go up tremendously, largely due to being on Coinbase. So and Ethereum as well. So I imagine that was like sort of the thinking behind a lot of the pump beforehand. But yeah, I don't know if the corporation was behind it. I did see a story about them starting to do some sort of investigation into insider trading in that regard. But who knows? It's hard for me to say. Some people are saying this may have ramifications for CME futures because they're one of the components of the CME future pricing. So if there's insider trading going on, then that might be a thing. So I don't know. It's to me sort of one of those things where yeah, some news gets out and wise guys front run that sort of thing.
So do you think, I know this is all just opinion. Obviously, we don't know for facts, none of us. This is the world of
Mhm.
speculation at best. But do you think that Coinbase hasn't adopted SegWit for the wallets to really make the appeal of Bitcoin Cash, Bcash, BCH more appealing? Is there a hidden agenda to the fact that they have not integrated SegWit to their wallet?
Well, I think the big agenda is that they are not that competent Bitcoin company. I mean, you saw what happened yesterday. They released Bitcoin Cash, and it immediately crashes. Like maybe 20 trades are in, and then it's done. And that's been the story of Coinbase the last like 3 years or something like that. Is they don't have a very good back end. They keep crashing. I mean, like I still remember this tweet from Brian Armstrong where he's like, like, yeah, the last 8 months we've been working on this really, really cool feature, and that feature, and like he released it the next day, and it was this, the feature was moving to React, like just like a different front end JavaScript library. Like, really, that's what you've been working on? You're handling people's money, and you are just working on the front end. You're not like beefing up your back end. You're not making it like fail over gracefully. You're not like fixing all of these problems. It's this is a company that frustrates me to no end because the amount of money that they've raised and the amount of
Mm-hmm.
money that they have, and I mean, like, I know Brian. He's a pretty technical guy.
Uh-huh.
I don't understand how they can't hire competent devs, but that seems to be sort of like a running theme at that company. And really, they were one of the signers of the New York agreement, right? And in signing the New York agreement, they were more or less saying, we don't want to work on SegWit. We'd rather have the easiest thing done for us, and that's increasing to a larger block. And that's the laziest way of scaling, but it's massively inconvenient for everybody else, but good for the businesses that are, benefiting off of the public good, which is the blockchain. And they just wanted bigger blocks. And it's like they wanted that for a reason. They probably didn't have the development power to be able to do SegWit in a timely way. And I don't see this as them like trying to pump Bitcoin Cash or whatever. I mean, that may, I don't know, maybe that factors in at some point. But honestly, it just seems like they don't have the resources to be able to do it well. And that's really unfortunate because, like they don't have to be the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the US. I will remind all of your viewers, Google was not the first search engine. Facebook was not the first social network. And the reason why they won was because they were super technically competent. And if Coinbase continues to be this incompetent, I am going to predict in 5 or 10 years' time, they're going to be a minor player, and somebody else is going to eat their lunch and just completely destroy them.
You just called Coinbase Yahoo in 5 years.
I kind of did. Yeah, yes, I did.
There's so many opportunities Yahoo had to be so much better and even acquire Google, and they just kept being incompetent. And I can see Coinbase running this pattern that they have. Like you said, they actually brag about how much money they make. They brag about how many new users sign up for their platform every month. It could fill stadiums of people. Use the money to hire some devs. But that brings me to a question. As a programmer, do you believe the scarcity of quality developers limits most blockchain technologies and companies from reaching their full potential? Will this be the greatest downfall of all blockchain technology, or will we succumb this?
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I agree that the scarcity of competent developers is the biggest bottleneck in the entire industry right now. And this is why I'm doing my seminar, Programming Blockchain, is to train a lot more developers. And I want to scale that up by writing my book, Programming Bitcoin. This is something that I'm working on with O'Reilly, and hopefully will get published in the next year or so. But yeah, this is the biggest bottleneck, the biggest risk factor to Bitcoin and all the surrounding ecosystem is the lack of devs. But at the same time, whenever you have a market scarcity, you also have market opportunity. And certainly if you're a developer and you want to get into this very, very lucrative space, there's plenty of opportunity for you. And if you're good, oh my goodness, the number of offers you will have coming your way is kind of incredible. And I want to help those people. This is why I have my seminar. You're basically coding a Python Bitcoin library from scratch, and you can create transactions using this library by the end of the 2 days. That's the idea. But yeah, it's a good question whether or not this will further limit the growth. I'm hoping that the economic incentives work and a lot more people come into this area.
All the links are in the description box below for your courses and everything. So if anybody's interested, there are links below. You can go ahead and sign up, and you can go ahead and learn how to build your own library from scratch. No, to keep going here. Now, will Bitcoin be the cryptocurrency that kills Visa and be used as daily money in the long run? Will Bitcoin's blockchain be used for something more than Satoshi intended? For example, proof of ownership like Ubiquity.
Well, so the medium of exchange, being able to transact really fast and do it really frequently, it is important, but it's like number 20 or 25 on the list of things that are important to the holders of Bitcoin, right? Number one is security. Number two is durability, fungibility. All of these other things are way more important in my opinion. And the people on the Bitcoin Cash side, I get their argument, right? They want it to be a medium of exchange because that makes it more useful for that particular use case. But most people I know don't transact that often, right? If you're holding it, you're using it as a store of value, and that's just as legitimate as buying coffee from a vendor or sending money to Africa or whatever it is. It's easier to talk about the second as the main use case, or as the word use, because it involves an actual action. But storing it is a perfectly legitimate use case. That's what investments mostly are, is you're storing value somewhere else. And that's okay. Will it become the main medium of exchange eventually? Maybe. I don't know. But I think the use case that we have right now is pretty freaking good. And I've said this before, money is the base layer of civilization, if you think about it from a technological standpoint. And if you have bad money like we do in the US and all over the world, and it's a very bad foundation, and it sinks everything else when it sinks itself. So when you have hyperinflating currencies like in Venezuela or Zimbabwe, it brings down everything on top. The entire civilization goes to crap because everything collapses, because air is just not up to snuff. And I believe that Bitcoin is a very, very strong base layer, and you can build a lot of things like you were talking about, like digital registries or ownership proofs and things like that. Uh, but civilization needs sound money. This is the only way you can this is the only way you can incentivize people to really build for the future and make civilization better. So in a way, I see Bitcoin as a moral mandate, really, because without sound money, you end up in a situation where people don't care about the future and just consume, 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 which is kind of the situation we have in the U.S.
Now you said Bitcoin, would be like or would be the equivalent of buying coffee with Bitcoin. Well, what if I told you buying coffee on the blockchain will be Starbucks coin or Dunkin' token, not Bitcoin? Like what are your
Well,
thoughts?
then,
What are your thoughts on all these companies just making their in-house altcoin as a gift card, quote unquote, and you would use your Bitcoin to transfer into their gift card. They would have an in-house ledger and they would just move it from store to store as you purchase. Because there's things like this already
yeah,
happening.
I mean, maybe that'll be useful. I'm not particularly excited about it because it's entirely centralized. Starbucks can take away your gift card whenever they want, right? Like, how's that different than fiat? And this is really the question you have to ask yourself with a lot of these altcoins. If there is a central point of failure or a central control, then what good is your money, right? If somebody can seize it, take it away, roll it back, or cause your coins to be unspendable, what the hell good is it as a store of value? If somebody can seize it, take it away, um, that to me, that's not really a very good store of value. And this is one of the things that makes Bitcoin different than everything else. Is it's doesn't have a central point of failure, and that's the main value. That's the censorship resistance. That's the reason why it's better than, say, Ethereum with its DAO rollback or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So, as a store of value versus monetary use, Bitcoin's secondary use case outside of being a store of value or money itself is its blockchain, the store of truth, the open ledger. Is that
Mhm.
itself enough to keep Bitcoin going, or does it have to be money right now?
Wait, can you repeat that last sentence? You broke up a little bit.
Does Bitcoin basically have to be used as money right now to keep growing as a technology, or is its open ledger blockchain technology enough to keep it growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the store of value case is enough to keep it growing, and there's enough of the medium of exchange utility to enable the store of value, and it's kind of like real estate in that way, right? Like you can store value in real estate, and that's
Hmm.
perfectly fine as long as you can transact eventually in and out of it, and it's sort of meant to be that way. It costs a lot of money to actually transact real estate, as anyone that's bought a home knows. Um, but that's sort of what Bitcoin is becoming. The entire blockchain idea is in that way, like kind of a registry of how much Bitcoins you own, except it's public and it's immutable and all that other great stuff. So yeah, I would say that's enough. I would say it's plenty to keep it going. I mean, there may be other innovations on top of it to make it more so that you can buy coffee on the blockchain, or coffee using Lightning Network or something like that, or use it in however way. But like, you got to grow in stages, and we'll see if the market likes it, if it finds it useful. I personally don't use it as a medium of exchange very much because it keeps going up in value. I paid $100 for some beef jerky back in 2013, and it cost me 0.25 Bitcoin. 0.25 Bitcoin is like $4,000 right now. Like that was $4,000 beef jerky. That's pretty crappy, right? Like as a buyer, not many. I mean, I know Roger Ver and a lot of other people like being able to buy coffee, but like 10 years from now, that's going to be like a $10,000 cup of coffee. You really want to? I just don't. I don't see that use case as much as long as we're growing as a store of value. Until that store of value has gotten to a certain point where it's reached market saturation, this medium of exchange part doesn't seem like as compelling a use case for me.
So you mentioned, SegWit and Lightning Network. Now, if all these wallets and everybody that's using Bitcoin Core, just, Bitcoin, BTC, if we were all using SegWit and everybody adopted that technology, would we be in competition with Bitcoin Cash in transaction fees and speeds? And on the other side of that, if Bitcoin Cash had the same user activity of Bitcoin right now, would they be in the same problem with high fees and low transactions as Bitcoin is?
Yeah, I mean, my answers to those are very speculative, but probably. It's hard to know because it's a dynamic system, and that means that there are dependencies that we can't really detect. And more somebody uses something, then less somebody else will use it, or more other people will use it, and there's like opportunities to do certain things, and there's more room for gaming as a miner and things like that. So there's a whole host of forces that go into like how fees eventually end up. And it's a dynamic system, so it's hard for me to say. But suffice it to say that if Bitcoin Cash had the activity of Bitcoin, it certainly wouldn't be free forever. And that's something that I pointed out to a lot of people. But yeah, somehow they think it should be free forever. I think that's just an unrealistic thing. But I mean, like I said, it's not that great a medium of exchange because it keeps going up in value. It's such a good store of value that the medium of exchange case doesn't really make sense. Who wants to spend money that's going up?
Right.
Right? Like you'd rather spend your cash first. You'd rather spend on your credit card first. Like these are way more convenient and have more
Right.
consumer protection, and more importantly, they don't go up in value, right? Like you're not going to regret it as much. So, my feeling is just do the just leave it as a store value, and use all your fiat whenever you can, and and then you'll be okay. And that's, I think, how most people view Bitcoin. Let's spend fiat and store money in store value in Bitcoin.
Now, a lot of people are trying to live off of cryptocurrencies. I am one of them, and I know that I am a beta tester for a technology that is still in early beta, and beta testers pay a premium to experience all the bugs in a technology that they want to be better. So I try not to complain about fees and stuff like that because I know I got into this to be a beta tester. Early adoption, I'm bound to see headaches. A lot of people try to live off of Bitcoin, and they're saying, like, how do they pay their rent? How do they get their coffee? I would recommend Litecoin or Dash. Now, that brings me to this question. Why would anybody choose Bitcoin Cash as a transfer of value over a currency that they're more familiar with or has a longer reputation like Litecoin and Dash? What was the thought process that you think maybe, that they had for creating Bitcoin Cash to be something that already existed by trying to just compete with Litecoin and Dash and all these other currency coins? Why would we choose this new Bitcoin Cash over these reputable coins that already do very well transfer of value?
Yeah, I mean, I've asked Roger this question, and
Mm-hmm.
his answer was more or less that there's already like a distribution of Bitcoin or something like that, which I don't really buy. Like, so what? You have the same distribution, or doesn't mean that you have the same network because a lot of those people are just going to sell it. Like we're waiting on GTEx right now. All right, did they start selling yet?
I hope I don't. Yeah, I hope I don't cost you any money, man. Being on this live stream right now, everybody's waiting for GDAX.
Yeah, everybody, like they said they were gonna be ready by like 10 a.m. Pacific. It's like a half hour past that. Nobody's really, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, but yeah, it's yeah, I don't really like their main thing is, well, it's sort of forked off the original Bitcoin blockchain. And this was one of the questions I asked Roger, was if there was another hard fork with a bigger block size, Would you support that instead? And he said, well, I'd have to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is an admission. Well, his argument, if that's all it's relying on, then that would logically be the case. I don't know. I don't see medium of exchange as that great a use case. I think spending your fiat is fine, and that's what I do. And if you are sort of like living off of cryptocurrency, why not just cash out just enough to live for the month?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with that? Like do one transaction instead of 70 on the blockchain. I mean, that seems like reasonable to me. And with a credit card, you don't even have to pay for like 25 days or something. So I don't know. I just don't get it. But that's okay.
I'm with you. I don't get it either. It doesn't make sense. Like I use Litecoin for my daily spending and maybe Bitcoin to store my value in as the month goes on. And I do what but I don't cash out for cash. I'll do it once a month into Litecoin, and I actually use a Shift payments card from Coinbase, and I use
Mhm.
that Visa card everywhere I go. So Litecoin buys my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then I use Bitcoin to buy a money order and give it to my landlord. So I've been all in for a little over a year on all three on Coinbase.
Okay.
I've,
Well,
I yeah, I found a way around it.
that way, but I understand other people want to, and that's obviously something that would be that's an interesting social experiment.
Right. Well, that's like buying the iPhone 10 and running a jailbreak on it the first day. You are taking a horrible risk at ruining your user experience and quality of life for what? A little feature that nobody has yet. But I know that's the risk I'm taking with my money in Bitcoin. It's in beta. We're working out kinks. And as it goes on, we'll have more and more growing pains. And I really hope all the new people are learning as these growing pains go on. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the political stance because a lot of traditional investors are worried about the limitations regulations actually have. They're, like money laundering and insider trading. These are just words in cryptocurrencies. There is no fork. There is no rules. You don't have to abide by the rules. That you can fly if you really want to. So will this eventually lead to self-govern and self-regulations, or is this proof that we need a centralized form of governance?
Well, I mean, I don't think it requires any sort of centralized governance. This is how the government sort of trucks out industries because almost every industry is centralized in some way. So you just go regulate the centralized entity and they can control it. This is the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's not centralized. So you can't just go to one office, arrest some people or threaten them with fines or something like that and get their compliance. So I mean, will they regulate it? Probably. It's probably coming, but is it going to be successful? I don't know. I think there's something to be said about people that are going to be rich enough to be able to pick their own
Mm-hmm.
venue. So at some point, they're going to move to some jurisdiction that's favorable towards them, and sort of ignore uh, U.S. law from that jurisdiction. I don't know. Like people in Panama do that already, right? Like people in Puerto Rico do that already. Um, there are all sorts of like tax refugees all over the world, mostly because they just don't want to pay the kind of taxes that they want, that the U.S. government wants. So yeah, I mean, will that lead to self-governance? I don't know. There's already sort of a form of self-governance in the sense that there's a Bitcoin community that will punish certain actors if they think they're doing something that opposes the rest of the community. So I imagine that Coinbase will get a lot of hate, as will blockchain.info in the next year or so, just because of how they don't seem to be supporting SegWit transactions and how they're instead like putting all their resources into Bitcoin Cash and stuff like that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be any sort of centralized thing.
Decentralized says hello. Are you going to be in Miami?
No.
Oh, I'll be there
Fine.
too. It's like wherever I go, Jimmy won't be there. I'm sorry, guys. It's all my fault. You touched on we talked about regulation, but you touched on something that really triggered something that I've been a little hesitant to talk about because I don't want to create FUD, but it is a fact. It is a matter of fact. I think regulations may have been what I would consider a hat trick, where they're saying, "Look over here, what I'm pulling out a rabbit out of a hat." But now we got the loss of net neutrality, and we could be seeing the limitations of Bitcoin and blockchain technologies through our internet service providers. So what do you think like the long-term effects of this could be on like we have a decentralized technology on a centralized internet. It can only be so decentralized, right? So what could be the long-term ramifications of the loss of net neutrality and the border of the ISP blocking blockchain technologies?
I think the market will find a way. I mean, I don't, I like, if you're willing to pay for it, I'm sure the ISP will give you traffic to wherever you want. I like
Yeah, but I
it's
mean,
the
it
market.
may
Market's the
cost
market.
you. It may now cost you an extra $100 to have the Bitcoin package or the blockchain package, so you can run Open Bazaar on your computer and shop on a decentralized marketplace on a centralized internet. But it costs you $200 just to log in because now they have these pipelines within a pipeline.
Well, so I mean, along with this stuff, I expect like a more liberalization of ISP, like more competition for ISPs, and if that happens, then the market price will converge towards exactly how much it's costing them because it becomes a commodity. So if Bitcoin costs $100 per month per person, then that's what the price will become. But I don't think it'll cost $100 because most people will probably not be utilizing the Bitcoin, network that much. I mean, most of the traffic is going to be like, I mean, they're going to go after the low hanging fruit first. I mean, the thing is, if you have a market and you have competition, I don't think you need to worry necessarily about who's doing what or what they can do because what they will do is based on consumer preferences and product market fit as long as there's competition. Now if there's a government granted monopoly in a certain region and they're the only provider, and there's no net neutrality, then they may be able to charge exorbitant fees for services that you like. But as long as there's competition, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I expect prices to just reflect what it actually costs, and that's fair, right? Like if
Hmm.
it does cost them like $5 extra per month to allow all of these packets through that are Bitcoin related, I think that's a fair price to pay, especially if that's what you want. But there are other solutions, right? Google's talking about weather balloons. There's
Hmm.
obviously LTE technology, wireless, all sorts of other ways. And the market, I believe in the market, and I don't think you should be scared of a lack of regulation around something. That just means that we might have to suffer a little short term, but long term, it almost always ends up better.
Yeah, I like you said, if there's a need in the market, somebody will find a way to fill it and make money off of it. I've been looking into trying to find like forms of decentralized internets, and I come across something like Nexus and what they're working on, and I didn't have any intent in looking farther until I saw like the loss of net neutrality, and now I kind of get the idea, or at least the importance of things like Nexus and what they're working on. I don't know any others, but that's just one, not to try to pump it or anything. That's one project that I've come across. I wanted to start to wrap this song up. So, what would be one of the questions you wanted to ask Roger during your interview, but you didn't ask him out of respect? Because he kept using the word respect. I felt like as like a shield to get you to be nice.
Well, no, I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff. I think I was a little too emotional in that interview, and when you're emotional, you don't think clearly. And I didn't. I had some points that I wanted to make that I didn't make. But we might do it again, so I'll save it for that.
All right.
And there's plenty of stuff that I'd like to know. For example, what he thinks Bitcoin Cash will do when the subsidy runs out or gets very low, right? Like, are miners just going to do it for free? like, because he thinks every transaction should be free or close to free. If they don't make any money, how are you gonna, like, what are you gonna do? And this is the entire argument for the fee market existing. So, I mean, those are things that maybe I should have brought up, but I didn't get to because I was too emotional. But yeah, that's something that we might do in the future. I'm not sure.
I'll be looking forward to it. Honestly, like that was recently, there have been a lot of interviews with Roger and about Bitcoin Cash, and that your interview with him was the most informative. You know, I wish you guys could have kept it going longer. It was very unfortunate that the internet was the issue because a lot of people learned a lot from that rather than the previous couple interviews where it was more like a catcalling argument. So if you guys look in the description box below, there is a link to that interview as well. Go check it out. So I wanted to ask, do you know who that guy was in the back of the video the whole time walking around?
No, but he was in some Caribbean island and he was trying to get something set up. So I think that guy was just like doing something in another room or something.
All right, I didn't
Yeah.
know if he had like bodyguards or something. I didn't know if you like knew what was up with that.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot of
No.
people wanted to know what your thoughts are on this. Charlie Lee sold all of his Litecoin and donated the profits to charity and started a new project. Now, he sold this ages ago, but the news has just come out. Will this even matter or affect the price? And what do you think Lee is up to? What could this project be?
I think Gavin Andreessen actually had a pretty insightful tweet. He said, "If I had a lot of crypto, I would just tell people that I sold all my crypto." Um, and it's kind of true. You don't know if he's lying or not. Like, how can you prove a negative? I don't hold any. Like, there's no way to prove the negative, right? Like, so I don't know. And I sort of I'll treat it as, you know, I mean, I like Charlie and everything, and maybe he's telling the truth, maybe he's not. But you know, if he were lying, I wouldn't blame him. If he were telling the truth, I wouldn't blame him. Is it going to affect the price? Probably in some nonlinear, dynamic way that we can't predict, but it probably does. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know the veracity of that claim, so it's hard to examine.
All right, you do educate people in programming in blockchain. I just want to know, do you have any student success stories? Any students of yours out there that you can be like, that's my student of the year over there? Any success stories that you could, you know, fall upon?
Yeah, so I try to you know, feature them on my Twitter and stuff
Awesome.
like that. A couple of guys have started a show breaking down Bitcoin where they go through
Oh,
and like educate people. That's kind of fun. You know, there's several that have done startups now. You know, I have a couple that got into the Chain Code Labs residency. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are interested in this area, and you know, I'll be featuring them more as they get more stuff done. But they're mostly putting down their heads and coding. I told them, like, make something wonderful and I will feature it, and I will make sure you get the press that you need. So you know, they're all working on that, I guess.
if that's like the one thing I could promote the most, it's education. Like if I could just run around and promote education, like that's all I would pump. I'd pump knowledge. That's what we should all be pumping. Forget pumping a coin, pump knowledge. So there's a link below where you can go and get your knowledge on. I really incentivize you to do so if you're a developer and you're looking to get in. I wanted to ask you, like, was there any questions I should have asked or anything that you wanted to bring up while we have the audience here?
I can't think of anything. Yeah,
Nailed it.
I've been talking for like 2 hours now. So before this call, I had another call and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't think of anything. I feel like and they're running together. I don't know. You might have been asking me. Whatever it is.
Right, right. It just all runs together. You've been having the same conversation for 2 hours. I'm sorry I held you hostage so long. All right, so what is one thing you want to make sure the listeners take away from this? If there's one bit of advice that they sink in, what do you want that advice to be?
Think long term, right? A lot of people are getting into crypto now. They're thinking like, okay, I can double my money in 3 months or something like that. No, it's you're thinking too small. This is a wealth transfer, the likes of which we haven't seen in like 200 years, and there's going to be some crazy stuff happening over the next 10, 20 years. Think long term, and do the thing that will position you well 10, 20 years from now, not 3 months from now. Obviously, if you can also do that, and the goals align, then fine. But um, over the long term, if you're a trader, most of them go broke at some point. So instead of doing that, I would say think long term. Just do whatever it is that's going to set you up, 10, 20 years from now, and not right now. And I think that's advice that a lot of people don't think about today, but that's how I encourage you to think.
Yeah, if you got into Bitcoin to get rich overnight, you missed the ball. Can you let people know where they can find more Jimmy Song? I have all the links below just to let the listeners know where they can find you, and we can wrap this song up.
Yeah, sure. Jimmy Song on Twitter, Jimmy Song on Medium, Jimmy Song on GitHub. I also have a show called Off Chain with Jimmy Song on YouTube. And I sometimes write for CoinDesk. I have BitcoinTechTalk.com. That's got a lot of technical articles. I think that's it. There's probably more.
World
But I
Crypto Network with Tone Vase. I mean, your list does go on long enough to forget a thing or two.
Yeah, sure.
It was hard to organize all the links, I'll give you that.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do go on
You
quite a
do a
bit.
lot for the community, Jimmy. Thank you so much for coming on my show to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a day.